Helen, we'll see you later. Thank you.
Bye. Time now, 7:22.
Elderly people need to have more fun, be more active, and cities need to be made more friendly for older people. Those are the findings of a new report on isolation that comes out today by the independent think tank, the International Longevity Centre.
It suggests introducing swings at bus stops, creating outdoor gyms for older people, and creating an electric bicycle hire scheme for the elderly. Are they really ways to combat loneliness? Let's talk about it. With us is David Sinclair, Director of the International Longevity Centre, which produced the report, and artist Sue Kreitzman. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
Sue? Excellent. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Let's talk about this report, first of all. Why did it need to be produced?
Well, because our cities are letting down older people. We've got almost half of over 75-year-olds living alone. 4 in 10 rely on the television as their main form of company, and yet we're failing to even deliver public toilets, let alone deliver fun. Our cities could be so much more exciting for all of us.
And so you're suggesting swings at bus stops? Is that one of the...
We're suggesting whatever people want. One of the problems we found is that actually, whenever we talk about this, you know, the bureaucrats say, oh, don't be so silly, people will fall off them. But then you talk to older people, and actually, one of the things people said to me was, actually, one of the problems is all the young people will get on the swings, and I won't get a chance. You know, people want to have fun. Yeah, our cities are dull.
I mean, we can see Sue chuckling away here. Fancy that, swinging at a bus stop?
No. I think it's an adorable idea, and I think all the young people will love it. I mean, yes, we'll fall off and we'll break things. And I think I read something in the report about making playgrounds open to elderly people too, and I just don't understand that. First of all, nobody wants creepy older people hanging around where the children are. You know, it can be a little suspicious, even if it's not actually suspicious. And we don't need to do that kind of physical thing. Young people and old people should mix. And I'm 74 years old. I never realized I was an old woman until people, you know, say you're 74, that's an old woman. We need to know everybody, the young ones, the old ones. We need to mix. We do have what you might think is wisdom, which we can share, but we need to mingle with young people and not just flap our gums.
So how do you do that? Because I suppose this is what the report is addressing, how to get that interaction.
It's not just about sharing what we know, it's about listening. And I think often young people, and I don't just mean teenagers, I mean people in their 20s and 30s, they need somebody to listen to them and listen to them with sympathy and really, really listen. And I think a lot of the onus is actually on the older people. You don't have to sit there and feel sorry for yourself. Get out there and meet people. There should be some sort of ability for people to get together and mingle socially. Just because you're old doesn't mean you don't mingle with the young people. That is the really important thing. Keeping the company of young people keep us young. And it also is interesting for the young people to have somebody who really cares about them and who listens.
But how do you do that, David? I mean, swings at bus stops is one of the eye-catching ideas, but are we talking about more community centres or just a change in attitude?
We've got loads of community centres around the place, but they've become places for hire. If Sue here wanted to go into a school to teach an art class for younger and older people, she'd have to get insurance, she'd have to convince them to open and close the door. We've got these facilities. We'd have to have all of this. Actually, the stuff's there. The capital is there. There's people like Sue. There are people willing to do this. How do we make it happen?
There are people like you, Sue, who you're an artist, you're outgoing, you're confident. There are lots of older people who aren't, who perhaps don't have family near them, perhaps don't know their neighbours, and perhaps don't have the confidence to get out. What needs to be done practically to encourage those people?
I think there are several things. First of all, I think people like me, I'm an old lady, but I'm sort of disguised as an old lady. I'm not really an old lady. I think people like me should go talk to elderly people. There are a lot of people older than me. There are people in their 80s. I would like to have some sort of scheme where I can go and work with them. I would like young people to be able to visit older people, and it's not just that they're doing a good deed. There's something interesting. There's an interesting social interaction to happen. I also believe that dogs and cats, for people who are old and infirm, I don't know if you came across this in your report, but they're magic. Absolutely magic. And for people who don't have the ability to have their own dogs and cats, is it possible to have dogs that sort of live in the senior centres? And, you know, they're...
So as well as an electric bike hire, you could have a pet hire scheme or something.
I think, well, just have pet... Why not, really? Because somebody else can have the responsibility of the pooping and the peeing and all that sort of thing, and you just have the
let the younger ones deal with that.
Yes.
So, David, thank you very much indeed. We're going to talk about this again a bit later at 8:45. So if you've got any ideas about what we could do as a society to try to make things more inclusive and make life more fun for older people, then get in touch the usual way this morning.
Now, many people enjoyed the hottest day of the year so far. That was yesterday, but the warmer weather does bring hay fever along with it.
Yeah, you suffered, don't you? I suffered. GPs have reported a doubling in cases of hay fever since this time last year, meaning more and more sufferers are having to turn to antihistamines to relieve those itchy eyes and all that sneezing that's been going on.
If you are a sufferer, what can be done to cut the cost of the medicine? Well, Chloe Hayward has been out to find out.
The time is 8:43. Elderly people need to have more fun. Apparently, they need to be more active, and cities need to be made more friendly for older people. Those are the findings of a new report on isolation by the independent think tank, the International Longevity Centre.
It suggests introducing swings at bus stops, creating outdoor gyms for older people and creating an electric bicycle hire scheme for the elderly.
Not just yellow ones.
Not just yellow ones. Are they really the best way to combat loneliness? Let's discuss this. David Sinclair is director of the International Longevity Centre, which produced the report. Artist Sue Kreitzman is here as well. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Why commission this report now? Who is it aimed at? What is it aimed at achieving?
Well, the reason we did this report with Age UK was because we've got half of over 75s who are living alone and 4 million older people who rely on the television as their main form of company. Yet our communities aren't even doing the basics. 4 in 10 of our toilets have closed over the last 10 years of our public toilets. We're not getting the basics right, let alone make our cities fun. We need an aspiration, a vision for communities which is much broader than going to pick up your prescription.
So, Sue, how do you fancy having a go on a swing when you're waiting for the bus?
I think it's quite absurd, to tell you the truth. I'd worry about falling off. I'd worry about getting mugged while I was swinging on the swing. I think what's important is to teach older people how to engage. We live in the 21st century. It's a whole new world. I think that old people need to be taught to be computer literate. I think they need to have access to computers that they can easily use. They need to be taught to email, to tweet, to use Facebook.
Doesn't that trap you at home even more, rather than getting you actually out and about?
Well, the idea is to combat loneliness, and you can be very, very, very engaged by being, and a lot of elderly people really can't get out. They may be infirm, it can be a problem. But a first step would be to learn how to use the computer, and they also have to be taught how to avoid scams and spam. You know, there's danger to the computer as well. So that's one thing. The other thing is, yes, get out and about, but carefully. If somebody is infirm, it's much more difficult. If you are okay, as let's say I am, I'm in my mid-70s, I'm fine, but I'm still a little shaky on the bus, you know, it would be nice to have something a little easier. Did I see something about driverless pods? You know, when I was a girl, we were promised that by this point in history we would have flying cars. Where are my flying cars?
Technology has let us down, Sue, I do think.
But a driverless pod, okay, you're gonna fix that for me.
Milton Keynes are about to introduce it, and you can, if you ever travelled first class. Unfortunately, I haven't from Heathrow. You can use these driverless pods back when so they're coming.
And it's for more than one person, so you have a little company on your driverless pod,
Brilliant.
Presumably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sue made the point about interacting online with technology, but also to combat loneliness, people need to interact physically. And one of the issues this report has raised is the lack of perhaps intergenerational contact, and the fear perhaps as well that if you are, and this could happen with young people as well as older people, you're on the street on your own and you're approached by someone, say someone my age, says hello, but you would think, well, what's your intention here? You know, a stranger approaching me on the street. This is difficult to break down these barriers, isn't it?
It's really difficult. We've created this sort of culture of fear, which is very real for many people. But what we have got is lots and lots of community facilities out there. We've got community centres which are barely used. They've become places to hire. Let's find ways, perhaps using technology, to bring people together in the first place, so you're not knocking on a random stranger's door and offering them a sherry. Let's actually build build the relationships and build the community so young and old can work together.
I would like to see art and music used to bring young people and old people together. This is what I do. And I'd like to see some sort of funding for that. And I'd like to see art and music without judging. You know, when I am an artist, people say, I want to be like you, I want to take lessons. I say, don't take lessons. Go to that place in your head when you were a child and you were making art, go there.
You just used the F word then, didn't you? Funding. And that's the problem. There's no money. So how do you persuade the people with the purse strings to start spending on kind of projects like this?
That's a very good question. I don't know, but I think it's very, very important.
You know, you talk about arts. We've had a few emails. Jackie's emailed and said she caught our piece. Her suggestion is music. Festivals such as Glastonbury cross the generations. Carol Loftus from the Smokey Joe Band says, on your subject of staying young, she's going to be 68 in December, the lead singer in a rock and roll band, and work on a regular basis. It's about getting together and crossing these generations, isn't it, and the generational issues. And without the funding, as John said, it almost seems almost pie in the sky. It's lovely to talk about, isn't it? But on a practical level, it's just not going to happen.
But it doesn't have to be expensive. We talked about pop-up shops, and there are many, many, many shops that are just sitting there until something happens in those shops. Why can't I have one of those shops to have an exhibition? And I wouldn't. My first exhibition that I curated was called Wow, Wild Old Women. And it was a blockbuster. The second time I thought, okay, I'm not going to be sexist. We included wild old men. And now we have old men, young men, women, everybody. And that's the way it should be. We should all be mixed together. And I would like somebody to, you know, open their purse and pay for us to be together.
OK. Well, look, thank you very much indeed. I know that sign that we've got in the background with the decrepit people with the stick, that's been criticised as well, hasn't it? A lot of people saying it's time to update that to make it more positive.
That's insulting and stupid.
And it was actually designed as part of a children's competition. Perhaps we need a new competition for older people to redesign the sign.
To go with the swings?
Yeah,
thank you very much indeed.
Let's talk to Helen. Let's find out what's happening with the weather. Helen, you have so many sporting events to cover today. Of course, the Tour de France,